So glad to have the pastors here in the house, in the studio, talking about questions, taking questions from you. And we always welcome your questions. You can call us in on the number that you're going to see on the screen, or send them to us, and we'll take them right to the pastor. I don't want to take much time just in chatting here because we got a lot of things to chat about. We haven't seen you. I haven't seen some of you guys for a little while, but welcome back.
Yeah.
Today's question. Oh, let me tell you. Let's do it right. I'm the moderator of this fine group of godly men, and on today's panel are
Dr. William R. Glaze, Bethany Baptist Church in Pittsburgh.
Chris Gibbs, pastor Crossway Church in the Mars area.
Pete Giacalone, Rainbow Temple Assembly of God Church, McKeesport, Pennsylvania. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
J. Anthony Gilbert, Kingdom Restoration Christian Center, Mount Washington.
Sorry, man, I got out of order.
That's okay.
I just got a little excited. Got a little out of order here. You know, let everything be done in what?
Decency and order.
There's a question that is really an exciting question for me, but it's across the headlines of all over the country, and it says, they're asking about this, and here's our question. Is there a prophetic significance or spiritual significance for the U.S. to move its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem?
Without a doubt, yes. Now, let me go to a scripture that we've heard quoted for many, many years. Psalms 122 and verse 6 says, "Pray for the peace," or the shalom, "of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you." So we have that one verse, but if we look at the whole chapter, Psalms 122.
We don't have time to do the whole chapter.
I know. But this is what God says in verse 5. "For thrones are set there for judgment." In other words, Jerusalem was God's pick for the authority. You know, again, the word shalom, the word peace, means to destroy all the authority that brings chaos to life. So in order for Jerusalem to have the authority that she needs, set up, ordained by God, God picked Jerusalem to be the seat of authority, the place of authority.
Yeah, if you also look at, there's quite a few, but Zechariah 8:3, it says, "I will return to Jerusalem, my holy city, and live there. It will be known as the faithful city and the hill of the Lord Almighty." 1 Kings, and you'll find this a lot in the Old Testament, but here's one instance in 1 Kings 11:32 where it says, "But he will have one tribe for the sake of my servant David and for the sake of Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen." It's the city that has my name, the city that is the name of the Lord. In Jeremiah 3:17, it says, "And at the time they will call Jerusalem the throne of the Lord, and all the nations will be gathered to it." So the idea that this is all coming back, there is a symbolic side of it as well as a prophetic side of it. The symbolic side is God restores all of those things that which have been destroyed, that have been put up in his name, which gives us as believers a great hope.
Well, okay, so we'll all say Jerusalem is the city of God, the city of the King. I like to say city of the King. But why should the U.S. Embassy be there? Why not leave it in Tel Aviv?
Well, when you don't acknowledge what God has put in order, and I think that's the thing, is we have a president that is willing to acknowledge. And by the way, one of the things, you can say a lot about our president, and we could all do that, and I'm sure he does it himself. He has Twitter. But you can, but one thing that you have to say is, here is a guy who says, this is what we believe, and this is what we're going to do, even though I know I'm going to take flack from it from every side, which, by the way, is exactly what the Israelites did. They stood up for what they believed, even though they took flack from all of the nations that came around them.
You know, as we read the book of Revelation and we move into the whole idea of the prophetic significance, you know, we see that Israel is going to come under great persecution. And so even with the move of the embassy, you know, it's what has happened. You know, I mean, the first thing you see is people out in the streets, you know, burning the American flag. And there's going to be a direct persecution against Israel. And we shouldn't be surprised by this. But when the Prince of Peace comes back, you know, his seat will be in Jerusalem. And he will reign from Jerusalem. And so when we look at it, you know, that's the prophetic significance, and we are moving in that direction.
Well, it also says in Isaiah that it'll be this place where all the nations will come together and they'll beat their swords into plowshares and they'll learn war no more. So I believe there's a lot of attention in that area. So it lets me know that God has his attention there, and I believe it's a sign that we're moving closer to that day that Christ is coming back, because it's setting up something big to happen out there.
And somebody asked me the question the other day, then does that mean that Trump is pushing for prophecy to come to pass? Well, I don't know if it's so much he's pushing for prophecy to come past or if God is using
There you
him
go.
to honor. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think he really knows a lot of what he's doing, but I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. What I mean is, I believe that things have been set up in a place, and I could say that for any side. Because, by the way, you had a king of Babylon who was being very much used by God,
Cyrus.
even though, well, you could Cyrus, Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, you could look all the way through there, used by God, even though they were unaware. And so, you know, any jokes aside, I believe that we do have a president that is being used by God. And, you know, and our country is standing up to all of the mockers to say this is where we stand.
Well, who's opposing it? Who's protesting? Who's against this move?
Well, a lot of the Palestinians are against it. Because they're recognizing another place as their central and their capital, and so what they're seeing is that the emphasis is being placed on Israel, and what's the objective of a lot of people in the Middle East? They say we want to drive Israel off into the sea. So when they see somebody recognizing Jerusalem, then that kind of goes against the whole tenor of the region.
And I also think, too, we're not wrestling against flesh and blood.
That's right.
A lot of this is principality stuff here. There's works at force here, or forces at work here that are trying to take that land that God has promised. And so, like you said, the Palestinians, they're not going to let that go.
Right.
But we know at the end of the day that God is going to have his day.
And then when you stop and think, Trump representing the U.S. of A., with him representing us and us honoring Israel, you know what's going to happen. God's going to honor the USA.
Amen.
So
That's right.
whatever he's doing, keep doing it.
And Don, one of the things I think is important to know is that the word Jerusalem is a word even in the Hebrew that means teaching of peace. So who is going to come against this? All of those that are politically correct, that are trying to get peace in a way that everybody agrees. By the way, you're not going to be able to manufacture this by getting everybody to belong. Peace, there is one Prince of Peace, and only until we come under that subjection will we find that. And I believe Jerusalem represents that.
Well, and I would say too, I think that it's important that we as pastors, especially in light of the president, distinguish him being a man of God opposed to him being used by God. Because I'm in a community where a lot of people would say that he's an antichrist. And like you said, somebody said earlier, we're not here to debate that.
No.
But I think the thing that we want to say is that he's being used by God.
I think so, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, the Jerusalem is the capital for Israel by all Jewish standards.
Right.
That's where their capital is. That's where their president is.
Right.
That's where their parliament or their I can't say the word
Voice of
Knesset
authority.
is.
Yeah.
It's all in Jerusalem. So why would not we as an ally? Let's take spiritual things off the table.
Exactly.
We as their ally want to have our embassy in where their
Because
capital is.
we don't want to be offensive to the Muslim world. We want to be politically correct. And when you are politically correct, you actually end up being
compromise.
anti-biblically correct.
That's right.
Well, you know what? Everybody in Israel, whether they're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever their perspective is there, they live in the nation of Israel.
Right.
And so the capital of the nation of Israel needs to be honored by our nation as where our embassy, no matter what your religious persuasion is, it's just a political protocol. Right. If we do anything else, we are dishonoring the capital of Israel and the government of Israel. So good job, guys. Good job. If you don't know what we do here at Cornerstone, you're new to us, I want you to get our newsletter. That's the best way to get a fast start and a jump start. And again, if you have a question for us, email them to us at heartquestions@ctvn.org or call us on the number on the screen. And here's a way that you can sign up for our newsletter.